Cool. Hey, everybody. My name is James, and I'm the master trainer at Personal 20. And today we're going to go over some foam rolling techniques, either things you may already know, maybe things you don't already know, maybe some tips or tricks to help you guys improve or get better at foam rolling, along with how foam rolling works and kind of when you should do it, when you should not do it, places you should do it, or places you should not do it. We're going to kind of cover all of that a little bit. I'm going to set my camera just a little bit better. There we go. All right. And if you guys have any questions during any of the process, feel free to ask questions. It's going to help this process go a little better. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask them during this entire process. If not, I will assume you understand everything. And I know that's not going to be true because not everybody understands everything the first time they hear it. All right. But before everybody gets on, or while we're waiting for different people to log in or everything, if you have a foam roller, go get one. And I'm going to go over the different kinds about that. But if you have a foam roller, go get one. I'll explain what we're going to do within a little bit. If you don't have a foam roller, roll up a mat. This will work. It's a little softer, but it'll still work. So if you don't have one, you don't need one. But I'm going to show you how you can use your foam roller that you currently have. I have Christoph and Christine is online. Perfect. All right. Carmen has on Facebook. I said I'm on Facebook. It's on Personal 20. Christoph and Christine are watching on Facebook, so we're online. All right, we're on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, so I will get both questions from both places as fast as I can read, even though the screens are very tiny and I'm sitting far away. All right, so while we get that going, it's really important to you guys, before, after you do foam rolling, you need to make sure you have water. You need to be hydrated while you do foam rolling. We're going to get into what that is in a second, but give you guys a few more minutes. Remember, if you have a foam roller, go get it. Bring your computer, bring your phone down to the floor. As we're going to spend time in here. We're going to actually do some rolling today. We're going to kind of explain the benefits of it, what it does, as well as when you should, when you shouldn't, where you should, where you shouldn't, and that kind of stuff a little bit, along a little bit more about what it actually is going to do, and show you guys some cool stuff today. Hopefully you guys all stuck around with 2 weeks ago when we did our last foam rolling session. Today, we're just going to kind of continue a little bit more and go a little bit deeper and kind of dig into a little bit more about how it works and when you should be doing it. Awesome. All right, so I got a couple people online, a couple on Facebook, a couple on YouTube. Remember, if you guys have any questions or comments, please ask any questions. I'm going to do my best to answer all your questions for you. So first off, we're going to get into the kinds of foam rollers, okay? This one's called a rumble roller. This one is probably one of the most, if not the most aggressive foam rollers you can get. You do not need one this intense for it to work. Usually they're going to come in either about yay long or about 3 feet long, smooth and round, usually made of some kind of compact foam, basically what you're looking for. They're going to come in a couple different kinds of intensities. Usually there's going to be one that's going to be fairly soft, one that'll be a little bit more medium, one that's actually going to be pretty hard. It'll be pretty hard to be really hard for you to squeeze it. Give you an idea. One is not better than the other. Some people might need a little lower intensity, which is going to be a softer foam roller for certain exercises. You may need a much more intense roller or a much more stiff roller for some other positions. So not one roller is not going to fit everybody for everything. So you may have to have more than one, or you may be using more than one for different reasons. And I'll show you how that works a little bit. But this one is probably the most aggressive one. This is the one that I have and the one that I use a lot. I've also been foam rolling pretty much every day for the better part, well, minus a couple of days in there too, but pretty much at least 4 or 5 days a week for the better part of 5 or 6 years. So I have lots of experience foam rolling, and I've done lots of foam rolling on here. This foam roller is about 5 years old. Talking to my wife about it. 5 years old and holding up pretty good. 5 years old in lots of states and 2 countries, actually. So it's pretty cool. They will last you a long time. They're on Amazon for like $20. You don't need to get a fancy one. I actually would encourage you to get a simpler one. You don't need the fancy ones. They do have ones that come shorter. Now they have ones that vibrate. They have ones you can put in. They can get hot. They can get cold. They can have different kind of therapies attached to them. You don't really need that if you're just starting out. I would just start with just a basic plain foam roller. They even make some travel ones, which are pretty portable. They're about yay big and they're hollow, so that you can pack stuff inside of them. Those are pretty awesome. But we're going to get to what foam rolling is, okay? Lots of people know that they're supposed to do it. Not a lot of people know how to do it or when it's to be called for, okay? So I'm going to scoot close to the camera for a second. All right. So your muscles are made up, have a grain to them, kind of like a wood grain. So I brought this so you guys can see it. So there's a piece of wood. You can see that the grains are all going one direction versus another direction, okay? Your muscles are kind of like this. Your muscles are striated one direction or another direction, okay? And they're pretty much all your major muscle groups are going to have a striation of one or another way. And usually they're going to start at one point, like your bicep starts up here, going a long point. All the striations run long ways, okay? For the predominant, most part of your muscles, that's kind of when we're going to focus on a little bit. You want to basically be rolling in that direction, okay? Now, the other part about that's what foam rolling, that's what your muscles look like. What foam rolling does, I actually brought this is a roller for like a dough roller, okay? This is essentially the exact same thing a foam roller is on a much smaller scale, okay? So just like when you're like rolling out dough or whatever you might be using the roller for, you want to kind of push it out for some reasons. You're trying to get length out of it. Same thing you do with your muscles. You want to push to create length. Anytime you're foam rolling a muscle group, you're going inherently, as a result, going to have an increased range of motion and an increased length, elasticity of the muscle for a short period of time. Okay, it's not permanent. Doing it as a habit can have lots of benefits. All right, but that's basically what you're going to be doing with that. With the roller, with the rolling pin. That's the word I'm looking for. A rolling pin. Your rolling pin is going to roll your muscles kind of like you would be rolling dough. Okay. Sometimes it's good to go a length along the grain. That's going to always produce a muscle lengthening effect. You might also go across the grain sometimes, which is going to kind of have your muscles tighten up a little bit if they're not as active. So you can actually use foam roller for both ways, to activate muscles that aren't activated enough or to help deregulate some of the muscles that might be a little bit more tense than needed. And there's going to be times and places when you're going to want to use both, which we're going to discuss a little bit today. Okay. I'm going to take a stand here that might not be as popular with some people watching. So if you disagree with me, hold your comments till the end here. Okay. I do have one. You can do a kitchen roller. You actually can. It's called a stick that actually looks like this. The PVC rings you can actually use to roll your muscles if you want to. I even know people who do it and they'll roll their biceps after a really heavy arm day. I mean, essentially it's the same thing. It's just smaller. You don't need to have the big one. Sometimes this is too big. Okay. All right. But there's going to be there's 3 places you really shouldn't ever roll on a foam roller, small or big. Okay. You don't roll joints. Okay. Joints are number 1. You should never roll. Okay. You should never, unless you're with a super professional trainer, roll your lower back. You want to leave the lumbar spine alone. If you start rolling and putting pressure in there, what's probably going to happen is it's going to tighten up even more and cause probably the rest of your back and hips to get even tighter afterwards as a kind of a defense mechanism. So we don't roll joints, we don't roll the lumbar spine, and then we don't roll the IT band. Okay. Now, again, if you disagree with me, that's fine. We can get into why you disagree with me later, and I'll explain why I don't roll the IT band. But I highly recommend not rolling the IT band. Okay. So we're going to get in with some simple rolls just to get started and get warmed up a little bit. Remember, so think of all your muscles as kind of those long kind of grains of wood or the dough, whichever one's more familiar for you. You want to think of your muscle like that. So we're going to start rolling on the mid back. Okay. And I say mid back because we definitely don't roll the low back and you definitely don't roll the neck, at least not this way. So you're going to start with the ribs. Okay. Think of when you're rolling your back as you roll from the bottom of your ribs to the top of your ribs, and you don't go below that and you don't go above that. Okay. So find your ribs. Okay. That's about where you're going to start the roller. Okay. It's usually about midway up the back. So if you're wearing a graphic logo on your t-shirt, it's usually right at the bottom of that graphic. Okay. Now you can do a couple of ways. I like giving myself a big hug to open up my shoulder blades. I'm going to lift the hips up and you're just going to pull your glutes toward your heels, back up. Let's get back a little so we can get a little better at the camera shot. All right. But you start at the hips and pull the hips down toward your heels and back up. And basically when you're doing any kind of rolling, you want to relax. Your body should be relaxed during the roll. Don't stress. We're trying to get your body to relax now, okay? Now, there's a bunch of little muscles that run basically the length of your spinal column that connect one to the next one or several to the next several. We're rolling those, trying to getting those to relax right now, okay? People are tense and we're tight. Now we're kind of deregulating that by lengthening those ones by rolling back and forth, okay? Now, when you're rolling up by your shoulder blades, between your shoulder blades, there's a bunch of little muscles that connect between right along where your spine is to where your scapulas are. And they help pull your scapula back and around, okay? So we're rolling against the grain on those. All right, so I got my wood. So with our lower back, we're rolling up and down the grain. And with those little muscles in your back, you're actually flattening them out a little bit, okay? So that you're going to think about it as two different ways. You want to go with the grain or against the grain. Right now, we're going sideways. I got somebody says that hurts, okay? All right. Susan Henson asks, what is the IT band? All right, good question, Susan. The IT band is what connects your hip bone down here. And for easier terming, that's where it starts, where it ends. It does connect to other things up here, and other things down here. Essentially, it's right here. So if you lay your leg out straight and you relax your muscles, you're going to feel the quads and you'll feel the hamstrings. There's going to be kind of a rubber bandish kind of feeling thing between. That's your IT band. All right. Now that we rolled the back, all right. So remember, we went lengthways up and down. We want to elongate the spine, and then we're kind of flattening out, going laterally across the grain for all the muscles between your shoulder blades, okay? Now, we want to try and keep those active. So while we roll them sideways is to help activate those smaller muscles between the shoulder blades, because the tendency for a lot of people who don't do rolling or don't exercise a lot is to get a lot of tension in the upper back, which tends to result in kind of this position. Okay, all know people how work here, all right? Or you get up here and their neck looks way forward. Same kind of thing, right? Those muscles those muscles' job is to pull your shoulders up and back, keep you in good posture. So by rolling them laterally to the grain of your muscle fibers per se, is we're activating them, getting them to help pulling you back up a little bit. So we're helping create correct posture by both flattening and going laterally against the grain for those little ones in the shoulders, and then helping relax the ones that go all the way up and down the spine. But just remember, we roll ribs to ribs for me, okay? All right. Now, that's one of the easiest rolls. You can start off with your spine, okay? Now we're gonna get into the glute. I hope you guys did a couple of rolls while I was explaining what those are. That's one of my favorite ones, and I roll before and after exercise. So before we go to the next one, we're gonna explain, when should you roll? Should you roll before or after? The answer is yes, you should do both, but you need to know why you do both. You roll before a workout as a warm-up, but what you're actually doing is the act of rolling across the rollers, actually creating heat and blood flow in your muscles, creating a warm-up effect, okay? You're not stretching per se, but the act of rolling back and forth is causing pressure, heat, and blood flow in all the areas where you're rolling. Remember, we also talked about we roll lengthways to deactivate, to help muscles relax. We roll crossways to kind of get them to activate or to contract a little bit. So think about that both ways, right? Sometimes it's good to have one before workout. Sometimes it's good to have another. Just depends what you're doing. But then afterwards is also great for the same reasons. Something's really tight. If you just did a lot of biceps, okay? If you worked out with Christoph and did his arm workout, you did a lot of biceps, okay? So you can grab a rolling pin. They make little hand rollers now. You can this is 2 tennis balls taped together, same kind of thing. I might go up and down to help lengthen out that workout. Because you ever did a really hard arm workout and you feel like your arms won't straighten, it's probably why you need to deactivate, something small like this or rolling pin and get the same effect on your muscles by helping them relax. It doesn't have to be just the big muscles. You can use smaller ones too. All right. Now that we did the back, we're going to talk about the glutes, okay? So there's going to be 2 main reasons why people roll the glutes. For one, they probably have a really tight lower back, or they just did a glute workout, or they have back issues of some point, or hamstrings of some point, some kind of issue. Everybody should roll their glutes. The question is how should you roll your glutes, okay? So your glutes, you want to think about is the muscles are actually angled. They're not straight up and down, they're not sideways, they're actually kind of angled. They're angled toward the outside of your hips, down toward where your hamstrings and your legs kind of connect. That's how it pulls up, okay? So we're gonna hop on the roller. We're gonna show you 2 versions rolling, okay? So if we wanted to deregulate or help lengthen the glute muscles, if they were tight, just saying if they were tight, I'm not saying yours are or somebody's ours aren't, I'm just saying if you wanted to, okay? When I found the best ways to do it is we wanna get on that angle. So I'm gonna turn sideways, and my body's actually gonna turn sideways a little bit also. And I like crossing my ankle over to kind of open up that hip again. And I'm gonna roll with the grain of my glute muscles kind of on that angle, because I've tilted my body over and I'm rolling with the grain to help deregulate, stretch, or lengthen. I'm gonna roll with the grain, the muscles come back and forth, okay? Now, Not everybody has really tight glutes, okay? A lot of people actually predominantly, I'm going to say for a lot of you guys, is you have very underactive glutes, okay? So we need to change how we roll this for a warm-up component. This could be great for a workout after a really good leg day or doing some squats or any of the P20 programs. But if you want to warm up and you want to activate your glutes, we need to change the angle a little bit, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, so this is me sideways, okay? So the rollers horizontal to my body. All I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it vertical, and I'm going to do the same thing, but I might leave my leg out this time just for balance-wise, and I'm going to roll laterally across, and this is probably going to be a little less comfortable, okay? Think of it going against the grain of a wood. If anybody's ever worked with stuff where you've tried to knead dough, if you're going against the grain or against it, it gets harder. But this is going to activate those muscles. And if you're not focused on relaxing, when you roll over that bumpy part, you actually will feel it get tight because you're activating it. You're creating a response by getting those muscles to reinnervate, okay? And again, this is a great way to warm up before your program, but maybe not necessarily after a workout. So I'm activating my glutes, and I can actually feel my glutes like flexing and contracting. I'm getting a pretty good contraction, all right? So I'm gonna do the other side now, okay? So let's do the activation component. So I'm gonna go this direction so you guys can see, okay? So remember, my glutes are at an angle, so I'm gonna pitch this at just a little bit of an angle. I'm gonna bend my right leg, sit on top. I'm gonna kick my left leg out, and I'm gonna go sideways right there, okay? Now you see I have a little grimace in my face. That's okay, because I can still breathe. You sit on there and you were like, and you tensed up, that's defeating the purpose of this. You wanna let the roller work with you. And I got a couple of tender spots in there for some of those little muscle fibers that didn't quite wake up earlier today. So again, a great way to help your body warm up for a program because we're rolling laterally across the grain to activate those muscle fibers. But since we already worked out today and it's Friday, you guys probably worked out at once. We're gonna go. So I'm gonna lay the roller sideways. I'm gonna sit on top. I like both hands behind. I'm gonna bring my left ankle onto my right knee. I'm gonna lean sideways and I'm gonna roll with the grain of those glute muscles. You get a bunch of little muscles in there. So you might feel a couple of different things as you roll across the grain on some and with the grain on one. Not all your muscles go all the same direction. So you might hit a couple of different things on here. Remember, if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to write them in. I'm watching them as best I can back and forth, all right? And if you didn't do the other side, do the other side for either the activation or the relaxing, whichever one you're going for, all right? I got a couple feels pretty goods on Facebook. I agree. It's a great way to get the glutes working. So again, you can roll to warm up and roll to cool down, but you need to know why you're doing both and make sure you have a reason for doing both. So we're going to take a look at the next two major muscle groups. So the glutes is a big one that a lot of people have very overactive muscles on, or sorry, very underactive. Sorry, let me phrase that again. A lot of people's glutes are very underactive, even though rolling the long ways with the grain helps relieve stress and pressure and tension, feels really good. You probably should be doing the other one and roll it sideways laterally to the grain to activate the muscles and get them used to warming up before working. You can do the fun one afterwards. All right, you probably should do the lateral one before your workouts, all right? The other big one people have issues with hamstrings. Because some people have lower back issues. They're going to have some glute problems for one, probably underactivation, and then probably a lot of overactive hamstrings goes right along with that. Your body has to compensate for something's underactive to overactivate something else. In this case, the hamstrings for any of the low back peoples out there, all right? So I'm going to do one leg because I like doing one leg better, all right? You can do both if you want to, but I'm going to put it underneath my right leg. Remember, we don't roll the back of the knee, and you're not going to roll the hip joint, okay? So right where kind of that glute ends, that's where that bone ends, you're going to stop there. I like putting one leg here for balance support. This might be too much for some people. So I like doing it here, and you're just going to roll forwards and backwards. So this is helping lengthen because you're rolling with the grain. Remember, so your hamstring starts way back out here and goes all the way back into that glute muscle and runs. All the fibers run this direction. So we're going to roll with the grain of those fibers to help lengthen and stretch them out. So nice big roll. So again, great workout for maybe a warm up, maybe a cool down, whatever, depending what you did that day. If you're trying to do lots of hamstrings, then you probably don't want to stretch it before you do a workout. But if you're going to focus on maybe some different muscles, this could be a great way to relieve some pressure and tension from yesterday's workout, okay? All right, now say, we'll switch sides here. We'll do a little bit more. Remember, you want to make sure you stay breathing, and there's no magic amount of time or reps for how many of these should you do. It kind of depends on you, but recommended about 15 to 45 seconds, somewhere in there, okay? You might need less on one side. You might need more on the other side. That just depends. Right? Now, because you got a lot of different muscles in the back of those hamstrings, okay, there's several back there. You might roll your foot out, feel a little different. You might roll your foot in and feel a little different depending on muscles you're hitting, okay? So while you guys are all rolling back and forth on that, remember, we roll with the grain to release tension and help elongate the muscles. Now what we're going to do is we're going to roll across the grain, okay? You look at me like, how are you going to do that? Yeah, the roller only goes this direction and my leg's only so wide, okay? So if we can't move the roller, we move your leg. So leg goes on top. I'm going to go back to my other one. So if you're doing a leg workout, this could be a great way to activate your hamstrings. So I'm going to lay here on top, and you can see my toe in the cameras. I'm going to roll my leg in and then roll out. So what I'm doing is I'm letting the foam roller stay, but I'm letting the back of my hamstring roll laterally across. I'm working across the grain to try and get those muscles active. And then again, this one tends to not feel quite as good. Just so you guys know, this is activating the muscles, so it's harder to relax. Remember, my breath is still controlled, but I'm going to feel a lot of heat generation. My hamstring is getting pretty warm, rolling back and forth because of the pressure and the motion of pulling back across to create that blood flow. Switch sides. So again, great way to warm up or activate the hamstrings before a leg workout, all right? All right, Christoph said, if I find knots, what do I do? All right, Christoph, if you find a knot, you should take a deep breath and sit on the knot, find that spot and sit on it and stay there and take a couple of deep breaths, all right? You want to sit on it not too long. You shouldn't be sitting there putting all your weight on it for the full 45 seconds, but find it, sit on it for a second or two, and then move away, okay? Sit on it for a second and then move away, all right? Because what's going to happen if you have some of those knots, either it's from the muscle fascia, which is essentially what connects your skin to your muscles. It's kind of porous, looks kind of like honeycomb, right? That muscle fascia connects between the muscles and the skin. And if you get tight knots, that muscle fascia could get all scrunched up and kind of make a little ball. If you sit on it too long, you're going to mush it flat. And you might have broken it up for a little bit, but then tendency afterwards is once you let go, is your body's now, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff we just created, and it's going to get worse over time. So don't sit on it too long. You want to kind of roll over it, kind of think about it like you're kneading dough. You roll it over, you want to roll it out. You want to incorporate everything to a nice, even pattern and consistency. Same thing with muscle fascia. You don't want to leave the knots. You don't want to beat it up too much because then you're going to make it flat and then it's going to freak out. You have to do a lot of extra work to repair it. Or you could just roll over it nice and gentle, sit on it for a second or two, work past it, and let it kind of work itself out. All right. Now, if you have some muscle, like some knots that are a little bit deeper in the muscle belly, same thing's going to go. That actual pattern of kind of rolling back and forth across it is going to push blood flow into it and then push waste away from it to help increase blood flow to the muscle, helping deregulate that muscle spot and tension. I have another question here. Connie. If I'm sitting too much during the day, this is a good to loosen up the tighten of the hamstrings. You got it, Connie. That's 100% correct. This long one, this one right here, this is a great way to loosen up the hamstrings at the end of a very busy day or during lunch or during a break. That's fine too. Remember, we go across the grain to activate. You go with the grain to relax, all right? Now, because a lot of us tend to work the hamstrings a lot, we tend to have really overactive hamstrings that also could have some IT band issues. So now I'm going to talk about the IT band a little bit, maybe not so much a favorite to everybody else's. And this roller is probably too intense for what I'm going to show you, but I'm going to try anyways, all right? So your body's all connected to everything else, okay? When you pull on something, something's got to give somewhere else, okay? Now, this IT band, this guy that runs from about right where that bony part of your knee is, up to right about the bony part of your hip is. If you feel sideways across, you'll feel that little band. It almost feels like a giant rubber band pulled pretty taut in there, all right? It doesn't stretch or flex or move. It's designed to hold 2 muscles down here to 2 muscles up here in your hip. Most people tend to roll the IT band because it feels good. Remember, feels good isn't always what you're looking for, all right? But specifically with clients or anybody who's gonna have like maybe some weaker glutes, we wanna activate them like what we did with the lateral motion, but especially if they're also having some IT band or even knee pain afterwards. If the glute is really weak, that means that IT band is being pulled towards up towards the TFL here, the muscle, the tensor fascia right here, pulling everything out of alignment a little bit. So we want to get this to relax a little bit. It can help let the glute work after you activated it, and it can help take some pressure off the IT band, even off of your knee, and even all the way off of your feet. Okay, and that's how interconnected things are. If you target your hip, you might actually get some foot relief or ankle relief pain out of some of these different movements. Remember, everything's connected to everything else, right? So if I want to roll my hip, so I'm going to sit on top of my roller and I'm going to cross my leg over top and I'm going to come down a little bit, okay? So I'm not on the side of my hip. I'm actually a little bit in front and I'm only rolling about 3 inches. And again, this is probably too intense for me on this roller. But all I'm doing is right here. And if this hurts a lot, like it does on me, it's probably because it's overactive, all right? This muscle is going from about here to here, with the muscles going this direction. So we're trying to relax that component from about here to here, okay? You find your hip bone, put your thumb on your hip bone, fingers down. That's about where those muscle fibers are going. So we want those to relax. Again, leg goes out straight. I'm gonna sit on those. And again, this is not pleasant, okay? Now, if it's really intense, put that back knee down, and then you can even go here or bring this foot in long more to get a little bit less pressure on it, all right? And we're gonna stay here about 15, 20 seconds. And like I said, it's about 3 inches. It's a really small muscle. It does a lot of important things, but it's a pretty small muscle. So I'm rolling back and forth. Again, not super pleasant, but doing lots of benefits for you, okay? And I'm gonna relax. Oh, that feels pretty good. Now we're gonna hit the other side. All right, now I'm gonna check how many questions. All right, no questions, so we're gonna keep going. Staying sideways again. I found that part of my hip. I brought my leg up. I dropped this knee to the ground to relax. And I'm just gonna go up and down. Just that little motion right there, okay? If you have IT or knee pain, this could be a great way, believe it or not, to help relieve some of the pressure and tension on the knees, because this is what's pulling the knee sideways, can cause some pain. Again, if you need to make it less pressure, walk that foot up, drop that leg down, or even come down a little more to a plank position. But it doesn't need to be a lot of pressure. It just needs to be just enough. Help it relax, all right? All right. So now that you guys all did those foam roller, those ones, so we activated or lengthened our glutes, then we activated or lengthened our hip flexors. I want everybody to stand up. YouTube, you're gonna miss me for a second. All right, stand up, and I want you to sit as low as you can go. Your hips now feel like they're brand new. You can sit pretty low without a lot of pressure because you activated your glutes. You got your glutes to take over more of the responsibility of squatting. You took some pressure off of those short muscles in that hip flexor area so that they relax, allowing for flexibility, allowing for your hips and glutes to do more of the work and not be trying to overcompensate through that, right? Those are some of the really short and simple ones. We're gonna get into a couple of more smaller ones. So if you have a tennis ball or you have a rolling pin, or even one of these guys, this is called, I just forgot the name, a beastie ball. Anything like that, a ball. So this is 2 tennis balls. If you have one, that works fine too. We're gonna go over some of the smaller muscles that we didn't do 2 weeks ago, but I wanted to elaborate a little bit more about the hips, when to use a foam roller and when to not, different kinds, different ways you can foam roll different muscles, whether you want to activate before a workout or you need to release afterwards after a workout. Or you might want to activate both. If you have really underactive glutes, you may want to activate before and after to facilitate the activation of the glutes. But let's start with some biceps, all right? This is a pretty easy one. So I'm going to use the tennis balls on this one. So I have 2 of them together, but you could usually just use one. And you're just going to roll up and down. okay? Or if you have a single tennis ball, same kind of concept. And I'm just gonna go up and down the bicep, okay? If you're really sore, you will feel this, okay? But this is gonna feel pretty good afterwards. Remember, we wanna go the length of the muscle fibers. We wanna go with the grain. So your bicep starts way up here. Well, one of them does, two of them do. And it goes all the way down, kind of like where your fingers are going, all right? So we're gonna go up and down. The rolling pin, tennis ball, whatever you got, you just wanna use your palm and just roll up and down. This is gonna creating some relaxing effect in the biceps, okay? Switch over with the other side. Ooh, this side I'm a little more sore. I'm right-handed too, okay? So whatever side you use a little bit more, might be a little more tension, might be a little more taut. This feels pretty good on my right side, especially right in there. So I'm gonna find my spot. I'm gonna sit on it for a second, and then I'm gonna roll off. I'm just going up and down, nice and steady, all right? So one of the overlooked muscles, the bicep, it's responsible not just for curls and not just for the mirror, but also for a lot of shoulder movements. For the shoulder's going to be in kind of anytime when the elbow will be in front of the body, that bicep is going to be helping out a lot, okay? Now, for anybody who's got shoulder issues, so which means if you didn't have lower back issues, you're probably having a shoulder issue, okay? Or you're like me and you have both, and then you get to celebrate with the rest of us. Just kidding, all right? So if you have a tennis ball or you even have your rolling pin, I'm going to show you how you can relax part of the shoulder joint, okay? Now, remember, we don't roll joints, so I'm never gonna get up on the shoulder itself, so you're not gonna do a lot of stuff on the shoulder muscle itself. You got a little muscle that runs right beneath the collarbone that's really important for posture and really important for shoulder movement. So I'm gonna start with the rolling pin. I think everybody's got one of those, okay? Or something pretty similar, long and cylindrical, all right? And you're gonna go across the body, and I'm going to tuck my hand behind or leave it out to the side. And I'm going to find kind of that gap. And I'm going to roll back and forth up in that spot. All right, I might even just use a little end right here. There we go. That's a little better. And just roll it back and forth. Okay. That's all we're doing. We're working what's called the pectoralis minor, pectoralis major. The major is the one on bottom that everybody sees. Minor is this little one that runs right underneath the collarbone. So you can stay here with the roller. It's a little bit heavy. So I'm going to target with this guy, and I'm just going to roll it back and forth. Remember, I want to go with the grain. So remember, the muscle starts here and connects out here. So the muscle fibers are going to run this direction. So I'm just nice and relaxed, and I just want to push across the muscle. Remember, you shouldn't get up on the shoulder. You want to stop just below that. And this should be a little tender, because if you have any kind of shoulder issue, this is probably a little on the tender side, okay? Back and forth. Nice and easy. You want to just kind of be following right underneath that collarbone. All right, we'll hear for about 15, 20 seconds. Wrapping it up. And now we're hitting the other side, okay? So big rollover before. So remember, you can either have a hand out, or even a hand behind to open up that shoulder more. This is my problem shoulder, so I'm going to get a little bit more here. Remember, but I can still breathe. Even though it may not be the most comfortable, I can still breathe and relax during this as I'm rolling it laterally with the grain of the muscle and relax. Back and forth, nice and steady. I have a question. You guys rolling for another second or two? Connie said she didn't realize how sore she was from her last PT workout. All right. Now that we finished rolling top of that, we're going to take the same thing, something nice and small, all right? And we're going to roll right on top of the shoulder, okay? Again, we're going to help take care of the shoulder joint. We're also going to start working on the neck here. Don't need to lay in a foam roller for this. Just nice and steady. Or even better yet, if you have a spouse or a kid, get this guy and have them just go up and down right here. Remember, we don't roll on joints. We'll roll on the neck. That little spot in between, you're going to get a really good pressure relief out of this, okay? So we'll do about 30 seconds on one side. I'm by myself, so I just got to do it myself. Nice and easy, up and down. Remember, you guys are going to be out foam rolling. We're taking that foam rolling principle and skipping some of the bigger muscles to focus on the smaller ones. If you want to check, switch sides, by the way. If you want to check more about the bigger muscles, tune back to 2 weeks ago. We did a foam rolling overall. The basic for the major muscle groups, they are focusing a little more on the smaller ones, a little more ones that are overlooked, but no less important. About the hips and glutes, about the shoulders and pecs. All right, after you about 15 seconds here, okay. If you had shoulder issues before, I want you now to think about doing a shoulder press. Reach up, back and down. See how much better that feels. just by those two things. Remember, when you roll with the grain, you're going to release tension and pressure. When you roll like laterally across the grain, you're going to help activate muscles. So sometimes it's good to activate. Sometimes it's good to reduce the tension on the muscles. Just depends on what you're going for. All right. So those are the only ones that I had covered for today. I would love to take some questions or comments about what we just did, or maybe you have questions about other things related to foam rolling, knots, muscle tension, stuff like that, that I might be able to help answer with. I can't answer all your questions, but I will do my best to answer any of the ones that I have. And remember, when you're done foam rolling, drink water. Your muscles are like 60-some% water. Now you just use the roller to push blood flow and push waste out of the muscle. Hydrate to let your muscles fill it back up with all the good stuff, okay? All right, I saw one question pop up. Let me go scoot up close so I can read it. All right. The hardest part is to sit like you do. All right. To sit cross-legged like this, Christoph. Okay. This actually, to sit like this comfortably for a while, probably took me about several months worth of like dedicated training to this. So I used to sit like this, and I used to look like this, and I would be like falling over backwards, okay? That's due to several things, all right? For one, those hip flexor things that we did, that roller right there, that's probably really tight, keeping your hips from falling open to relax. The second thing that's probably really tight other than that one right there is you probably have really active hamstrings that don't let your legs fully extend all the way, because you need to be able to bring them in all the way up. So this is the high hamstring right here. Bring them in all the way up to your chest and relax. If you can bring your leg all the way up to your chest and then pull your heel in as far as you can, this is the same position I'm in. I just have it upright. Now I'm just going to put it on the floor. Same thing. Knee comes all the way in. I'm going to put it on the floor. But that will take time and pressure, and we can do a whole other thing about that exactly. But probably what that means is you have very overactive hip flexors and probably overactive hamstrings, specifically for kind of sitting that crisscross pattern there, okay? All right. Connie asked, do we need, that's me. Connie asked, do we need to roll daily? Yes, you should roll daily. I told you I roll probably 4 to 5 days a week, the better part of 5 to 7 years in there somewhere. I was carrying one of these around before it was cool. Now they're in every gym, every little studio you can see anywhere, but I had one way back when. They're awesome. They do a lot of different things, and you need to be patient with it, okay? Don't beat yourself up with it. It shouldn't be excruciatingly painful, but nor should it be like a walk in the park. It needs to be somewhere in the middle. And rolling every day is good as long as you're rolling with an intention. If you're rolling just for the sake of rolling, then you're not doing anything. But if you're trying to roll to lengthen some of those muscles that you know are a little bit tighter, or maybe activate some of those muscles that you know you're not using nearly enough, glutes, wink, wink, nod, nod. Yes, you all need to do this pretty regularly, is activate your glutes, because it's going to help significantly if you have any kind of back pain, right? And especially if I have shoulders, or I know I'm a shoulder day, you better believe I'm going to do this. Probably some of you guys have seen me in the studio do this, okay? I do this one pretty regularly when my shoulders getting tight, but especially nowadays when we're at home sitting a lot and using a computer a lot. We're stuck in this position, even if we might want to focus on it just by having our arms in front, as we're getting a lot of activation of that pectoralis minor. Grabbing a tennis ball, using a rolling pin can really help relieve some of that pressure and tension. All right. Any more questions, anybody? I don't think I see any more questions. So I hope that was helpful. We went over a little bit more of some of the smaller muscles, along with some of the other ways you can use to activate or lengthen some of the muscles this week. If you want to go back, a refresher on the basic foam rolling ones to cover all the mains. We did upper back, glutes, quads, hamstrings, and some calves last week or 2 weeks ago, right here on YouTube at Personal 20. So feel free to check that one out. This one's a little bit more in depth on how we deal with some of the smaller, more targeted issues that tend to be overlooked a lot, but are no less important, specifically around the hips and the shoulders. So I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Hope you guys feel a little more loose and limber now. But I highly recommend doing any of those ones if you need them. Yes, everybody probably needs to activate their glutes, especially sitting down now. Do the glute activation before your next P20 workout and see if there's a difference, okay? Or if you know you have a hard time squatting, hard time getting low on your squat, you want to lengthen the hip flexors with that long one, go with them, with the grain of the muscle, and then roll laterally on those glutes and see if you feel a difference in your own workout, okay? Really easy one if you want to. Do a couple more. You're already on the floor. Roll the glutes lateral sideways and then do the hip flexors up and down. And then try a couple squats and see how you feel. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with how much lower you get and how much less effort it takes to get there. That's the other part of this. This is all about working smarter, not harder, okay? We want to make sure we're working so that we're improving the entire body, not just for the sake of working, all right? Well, that is all we have this week. I don't have any other questions. I'll hang around for another minute or two if anybody has any questions about foam rolling or where to buy a rolling pin. So this is the smallest foam roller you could probably get here. And it's even better because you can give it to somebody else and then they can roll it on you, okay? That part makes it really convenient. And it's the same principle of a rolling pin as it is using the really big foam roller. You just get to use it on some smaller muscles, all right? Well, I think that was it, everybody. I don't see any other questions or comments from either Facebook or YouTube. So I hope you guys all enjoyed your foam rolling sessions. This one was a little longer than I was planning to, but that's because you guys were actually paying attention, had some good questions. All right, everybody, that's all we have. I hope you guys stick to the personal 20. We'll be back next week with some Q&As with some trainers, along with some goodies baking from Carmen. All right, everybody, you guys enjoy your weekend and have a happy Easter.